Good evening. Kulbhushan Jadav has 60 days to appeal, which may not mean much given the sham trial that he's been put through in Pakistan. India has toughened its position, evaluating options. Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and Army Chief General Bajwa say they will not tolerate pressure. The international community has questioned the blatant violation of the Geneva Convention. On Gravitas tonight, as we look at the road ahead, we also give you a glimpse of the hidden life of spies, how countries deal with espionage arrests, and why Pakistan's case holds no water whatsoever. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, the top headlines this Wednesday. German police investigate a possible Islamist link to 3 explosions that rocked the Borussia Dortmund football team's bus, after a letter found at the site refers to the Berlin Christmas attack. Pressure mounts on Poland and Hungary to take in migrants or face illegal action as EU member states fight on how to share the burden. Barely 1/10 of the 160,000 refugees have been rehabilitated so far. The Daily Mail apologizes and settles to pay $2.9 million to US First Lady Melania Trump for a 2016 story that said she provided escort services beyond simply modeling. And fighting to keep his job after a string of gaffes, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer forced to apologize for saying even Hitler did not gas his people like Assad did in Syria. The abduction and sentence of death on Kulbhushan Jadav by a Pakistani military court has confirmed every Indian's worst view about the Western neighbor.
It's uncivilized. It amounts almost to blackmail. But then anything is possible in Pakistan. After all, they hanged a prime minister of theirs. Having said that, I'm sure that sanity will prevail. You know, these cases, whether he was a spy or not a spy, we don't go into that. Because espionage or spies are caught all over the world all the time. This is not something unique. And very rarely does a spy get hanged.
The only relief for Jadav's family is the statement from Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif that says that Jadav has 60 days to appeal against his death sentence.
इंडियन नेवी का ओरिजिनली ऑफिसर है, वो गिरफ्तार हुआ। पिछले 3 महीने से 3.5 महीने से इस पे ये मुकदमा चल रहा था। स्पाइंग का, पाकिस्तान की सालमियत के खिलाफ काम करने का और पाकिस्तान में दहशतगर्दी की सरपरस्ती करने का और हिंदुस्तान की रियासत के बिहाफ पे पाकिस्तान की जो रियासत है उसको अनस्टेबल करने की कोशिश जो है। उनके यहाँ पे लोगों के साथ राब्ते भी थे और उसकी कन्फेशन के मुताबिक जो है पूरी डिटेल उन्होंने दी है कि मैं कितनी बार आया और यहाँ पे कितनी देर रहा। तो तमाम तर जो कवायद और ज़वाबित और क़वानीन हैं पाकिस्तान के, उनको फॉलो करते हुए कल उन क़वानीन के तहत उनको मौत की सज़ा इस शख्स को दी गई। उसके बाद एक प्रोसेस है, एपलेट प्रोसेस जो है वो जारी रहेगा। 60 दिन के अंदर वो अपील कर सकते हैं, फिर वो चीफ ऑफ आर्मी स्टाफ को अपील कर सकते हैं। उसके बाद द अपील कैन गो टू द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ पाकिस्तान। तो ये प्रोसेस जो है वो ही इज़ एंटाइटल्ड टू दैट, वो उसको फॉलो करना चाहेंगे तो ज़रूर करें। लेकिन एक बात जो है, द मैसेज वेंट लाउड एंड क्लियर कि हमारे मुल्क में जो दहशतगर्दी है या हमारी सालमियत के ख़िलाफ़ काम करने वाले लोग, चाहे वो सरहद पार से आएंगे या वो हमारे पाकिस्तान के अंदर रहने वाले लोग होंगे, उनके साथ किसी किस्म की रियायत नहीं की जाएगी।
But in Pakistan, nothing is straightforward or simple. On Tuesday, Pakistan's National Security Advisor, retired General Nasir Janjua, declared during a meeting with a foreign diplomat, and I'm quoting what he said, India and Pakistan cannot remain enemies forever. Although India considers Kashmir a bilateral issue, it has defeated the spirit of bilateralism by defying any dialogue over it. That is what he said. So is there a hint here that India needs to resume bilateral dialogue on the whole range of issues of importance to Islamabad and the army, including, of course, Kashmir and Siachen? That's the question that experts are looking at. Let's also take a look at some other issues. The abduction of Kulbhushan Jadhav throws up. What exactly does Pakistan want? After a low-profile beginning, it appears that General Bajwa is coming into his own, perhaps signaling the civil government what his intentions really are, and that the army will assert its core interests, keep the civil government on the defensive in Pakistan, and maybe demand bilateral talks with India. Given all of this, how does India go forward on this case? Joining us, Manishankar Iyer, former diplomat and Congress leader, now joining us on Gravitas. Also, Sushant Sareen, who's a senior fellow at the Vivekananda Foundation. Good evening to both of you. Mr. Iyer, let me come to you first. A 60-day window of appeal for Jadav. How optimistic should he be?
I think we should be realistic. There is an option, there is a window, and we should assist Kulbhushan Jadhav in every way in availing of this window, on preparing a case that is convincing before the appeals court, and generally having the process better known in the outside world than we were able to do with respect to the trial court itself, the army trial court, and then, if necessary, to hope that there will be a clemency proceeding in the presidential palace. We should try to get Kulbhushan Jadhav back. And I'm glad to see that the government appears to be thinking along these lines. And one can only wish them all the best and hope that Kulbhushan Jadhav will be back with his family sooner than later.
But sir, the help that you're talking about can be offered only if he gets consular access. Do we know that he's getting consular access henceforth?
I have no idea, nor do you. We can make our best guesses. The fact of the matter is that I do not know what happened in the army trial court, because very, very little public information is available about that process. What we do know, and what is in the public realm, is that under the relevant legislation of Pakistan, there is an appeals process within the armed forces, and I'm just saying that we should render whatever assistance we can to Kulbhushan Jadhav to be able to present his case before this appeals court.
Sushant Sareen, let me put the same question to you. And how do you see the odds stacking up against Kulbhushan Jadhav?
See, I think we need to go into how this whole judgment has come about. Obviously, Khwaja Asif, who pretends to be the defense minister of Pakistan, really doesn't, either he's saying complete lies, because when he says that this trial or this whatever farcical trial this was, has been going on for 3 months. Just in the first week of March, we have a statement by Sartaj Aziz saying that we are in the process of filing a case against Kulbhushan Jadhav. So now one guy is saying that it's still to be filed. This is on the 3rd or the 4th of March. And the other guy says this has been going on for 4 months, number one. So clearly either the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing, or something has suddenly triggered this entire process. The second thing, and I don't know if Mr. Iyer is talking about the appeals process in the even that's an abnormal court, actually the military courts, or he's talking about the appeals process in the court-martial proceedings under which Kulbhushan Jadhav has been tried and sentenced. even the military courts are kangaroo courts, where even when you go into appeal, there is not a single appeal which the Supreme Court has even taken cognizance of, because no evidence on the basis of which anybody is sentenced is even presented in that court. In the case of a court-martial, the first appeal apparently lies with another body of officers, and you know how that's likely to go. The final appeal lies with only the army chief, who in the first instance has already endorsed the death sentence. And once the army chief re-endorses the death sentence, the only option left for you is to plead clemency before the president of Pakistan. So while Mr. Iyer is absolutely right that whatever legal processes, if at all these are legal processes, are available, you should exercise them. If nothing else, you buy some time. In the meantime, whatever negotiations, if at all some negotiations or some swap deals have to be worked out, can be worked out. But frankly, depending upon the Pakistani legal system or the Pakistan Army's legal system, to expect that something good is going to come out of this case, I would be very, very skeptical.
Mr. Iyer, I want you to respond to that and also tell our viewers, we know that you met Mr. Kasuri and Abdul Basit only yesterday. Was this discussed? Were India's concerns conveyed through you?
We didn't, I mean, the two should not be put on the same plane. Mr. Basit attended the seminar that we had on improving India-Pakistan relations, which had been scheduled several weeks earlier. And he barely spoke in the seminar, and I saw that there were a lot of media people chasing him. I don't know what came out of that, because I think the media was more concerned with bashing me than giving Basit an opportunity to say whatever he had to say. So I don't know that there was anything substantive that was discussed with Basit, and if it was not in the conference itself. As for Khurshid Kasuri, after he'd agreed in principle to come to the seminar, he had to schedule his date. And since he and I have been very good friends for the last 56 years, he was aware that my birthday was on the 10th of April. So he decided he'd come into Delhi in order to attend this very small party of my family and very close friends, which I held on the 10th to celebrate my 76th birthday. And so I've been with him in various meetings that he's been having, and this question has arisen. Many of the meetings we've had have been on an off-the-record basis. So it would be wrong for me to divulge the details of the discussions that we have had, which involve a very large number of extremely prominent media persons from India. And in the course of those discussions, it has been suggested to Mr. Kasuri that if Kulbhushan Yadav were returned to his family, it would be a gesture that would make such a major impression upon Indian public opinion that perhaps a process of negotiations about issues that divide us from each other could commence. Now, there are others who believe that not even this would result in any kind of resumption of the dialogue, at least not before 2019. So a variety of views have been expressed to him, and he himself learnt about this sentence only after he landed in Delhi. He has not been involved in either apprehending or investigating or detaining or prosecuting or sentencing Kulbhushan Yadav. He's a member of the opposition.
Right.
And as a member of the opposition, I don't know what exactly he's going to do, but I would imagine that he would be pretty impotent in political terms vis-a-vis a government that doesn't particularly like him.
Well, I'm not sure what the sitting Prime Minister can do either, because reports from Pakistan say that even he learned about this death sentence only through media reports, and he wasn't aware, and he's well, this is a face saver, all the statements coming from Pakistan. Having said that, you mentioned the media bashing you, Mr. Iyer. And with all due respect, I ask you, at a time when an Indian civilian is facing the death sentence in Pakistan, is this the best time to talk about resumption of dialogue?
It's the only time to talk about the resumption of dialogue. All this might not even have happened, or maybe there could have been solutions found, if the process of dialogue that had been promised in May of 2014, literally on the day that Narendra Modi was sworn in as Prime Minister, had been underway over the last 3 years. There is no dialogue. It has been broken on what I consider completely illegitimate grounds, that they talk to the Hurriyat. But they've been talking to the Hurriyat for the last 15 years. And I don't know what has happened that we should make this yet another red line. And I believe it is in our interest to talk to them. You might believe that it is in our interest to not talk to them. Well, I can't guarantee a solution through a dialogue.
Right.
But I do guarantee you that there shall be no solution if there isn't a dialogue. So therefore, you are harming yourself. You're raising tensions, and these are tensions that could become uncontrollable. And it does seem to me that we are not following our own national interest in doing what? In talking to the other side. Instead of trying to say that you solve all the problems and then we'll talk. I think we need to understand that there are numerous international precedents of people who do not, countries that have severe differences, actually talking with a view to trying to see whether at least the hostility can be contained and, if possible, solutions found. But I think what we've been doing is harming ourselves, because in 1972, Mrs. Indira Gandhi's huge achievement was in persuading Bhutto to put his signature on a document which said that the issue of Jammu and Kashmir will be resolved bilaterally. That was 45 years ago. And in these 45 years, we have not had a process of uninterrupted and uninterruptible dialogue. And therefore, we are virtually at the same level of tension as we were well before the Shimla Agreement.
Well, my limited
so
point,
we won't talk to them bilaterally,
is, sir,
and we refuse to engage with them multilaterally.
Sure. The limited point I want to make is that we were talking to Pakistan in 2013, and yet Sarabjit Singh was killed. So, well, you're entitled to your opinion, of course, but I will ask this to Sushant Sareen. One of the theories is that this is a leverage that the Pakistani military and the Pakistani government are probably using to bring India to the talking table. That's what a set of experts believe. How do you see this? Is the best time to talk about talking to Pakistan, Sushant Sareen?
No, I don't think that this is the best time for talking to Pakistan. Mr. Iyer has his view. It's a well-known view. He also has a logic to what he's saying. But I don't see how, this logic really works with Pakistan, especially when you go through, you've been through a series of these kind of dialogues with Pakistan. There's been a lot of hype also, even when Mr. Iyer's friend, Mr. Kasuri, was involved in the dialogue, which was supposed to be very promising. I'm not so sure whether that would have also led to anything. And even while that dialogue was going on, and what is often called the golden period of, ties between India and Pakistan in living memory, we had a series of very, very serious terror attacks in India. So, see, you also have to understand that the hands of any government in India will also get tied, because, and to some extent, I'm sure Mr. Iyer would agree that to some extent it is a trap. That if you start a dialogue and there's a terror attack and you break off the dialogue, then you give a veto to the terrorists. But on the other hand, there is also a danger that when you are entering into a dialogue, then the other side thinks that, well, this is a buffer before tensions can go out of control. And so, the flow of terrorism can continue uninterrupted, which is what our experience was between 2004 and 2008. So, and in any case, there has to be some kind of at the very minimum, some kind of an understanding on how you need to proceed forward. Then you can start negotiating, talking to the other side, and there has to be a degree of sincerity and seriousness when you enter into any kind of a dialogue. Unfortunately, we see that has not been the case. So I am extremely skeptical about entering into a dialogue with the Pakistanis, which is not going to be leading anywhere anyways. Now, Mr. Iyer's point could very well be that even if it doesn't lead anywhere anyways, how does it matter? You know, you can keep engaging. But I think there is a problem. There's a political problem when you enter into that kind of a dialogue, which is just meandering and going nowhere, which is not purposeful, and which is not done with some degree of seriousness and sincerity. And that is what my problem with these kind of dialogues is. So unless there is some kind of some kind of possible outcome to what you are entering into, and both sides are ready to look for some kind of middle ground, I don't see how it's going to be a politically sustainable process.
Manishankar Iyer, my final question to you. If India were to think about dialogue, who would the dialogue be with? Amid reports that this is General Bajwa's method, perhaps, his way perhaps, to undercut the authority of Nawaz Sharif when the government was not kept in the loop on what a military court is going to announce. So how does it matter who we are talking to, because the decision-making authority is someone else?
The dialogue between any two countries has to be with the duly constituted government on the other side, in the full knowledge that whether it is Pakistan or India, on questions relating to Pakistan and India, the armies of both countries have their own stakes, have their own interests, and would therefore have to be consulted. Perhaps I need to refresh your memory that in 1992, the Narasimha Rao government had come to an agreement with Pakistan on Siachen, and arrangements had been made for the document to be signed in front of the media at the Ashoka Hotel. And then the Indian army objected, and therefore, despite that signing ceremony having been scheduled, it was called off. So I think we should be realistic about this. In the past, I'll give you an example with which I was tangentially involved as a diplomat. I was posted to Hanoi in 1968. And in 1968-69 was the time when the talks every single Thursday at the Hotel Majestic in Paris started, and whatever was the condition of the relationship between the antagonists, including actual war on the ground, the talks were always held every Thursday, including during the Christmas bombings of 1972, when a larger tonnage of bombs was dropped over North Vietnam in 10 days than over the whole of Europe by both sides during the 6 years of the Second World War. The talks continued, and eventually both the interlocutors, Henry Kissinger of the United States and Le Duc Tho of North Vietnam, they were both awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. You have to talk. When there's the enmity between the Palestinians and the Israelis, that didn't stop either the Washington Agreement or the Oslo Accords. Further, of course, it hasn't stayed on, but there's no dialogue. And when you say that we were in dialogue in 2013, I beg your pardon, but you are wrong. Our talks with them had completely ended in 2008 after the Bombay attack, and then a tentative attempt to restart the process at Sharm el-Sheikh also ran into the dreary desert sands of dead habit, and we were in no conversation with them of any significance in 2013. So the United States and the Soviet Union had far bigger differences than we have between India and Pakistan. Yet throughout the Cold War, they were continuously in touch with each other, constantly trying to see what kind of accommodation could take place. I think this attitude is peculiarly Indian, that talking to Pakistan amounts as a concession to Pakistan, and that they must give all kinds of assurances which should be obtained at the end of a negotiating process before the negotiating process even begins. So, and we have had several dialogues with Pakistan, but they've all been disrupted.
Right.
And every time they're disrupted, it makes the India-Pakistan relationship like a game of snakes and ladders. Whatever you've gone up to is then swallowed by the snake, so next time you have to start from the beginning. So in these circumstances, I don't think in 45 years we have given dialogue a chance. And we can only give it a chance if we hold talks before talks, during which the terms of the negotiation will be settled, and only thereafter will the negotiations begin. But I see the process as a seamless one, and one that will be characterized by the two words uninterrupted and uninterruptible. We don't do that, then these kinds of incidents will continue, and we will be left screaming and shouting. But poor Kulbhushan Yadav and his successors will dangle at the end of a rope. Is that what you want? Or do you want a situation in which no Kulbhushan Yadavs are picked up in this manner?
Yes, in an ideal world, there shouldn't be any Kulbhushan Yadavs and there should be uninterrupted dialogue. Manishankar Iyer, thanks very much. And since you mentioned the Cold War, we're talking about the Geneva Convention that defines how a spy is treated, who a spy is, and lays down rules to be observed when dealing with them. While the Pakistani case against Kulbhushan Yadav looks concocted, it's clear that India will have to use every leverage to bring Jhadav back to safety and back home.
I subsequently joined the Indian Navy in January 1991.
The case of Kulbhushan Jadav brings to mind the Hollywood espionage thriller Bridge of Spies, starring Tom Hanks. It was based on a true story, the downing of an American U-2 spy plane over the former Soviet Union in 1960 and the capture of its pilot, Gary Paz. He was later exchanged for Rudolf Abel, a Soviet spy held in the US. Famous spy swap cases include that of East German Gunther, held in West Germany, who was exchanged for 4 Western agents held in East Germany in 1981. In 1969, Russian spies Peter and Helen Kruger were exchanged for Gerald Brooke, a lecturer held for distributing subversive literature. In 1961, Russian spy Gordon Lonsdale was exchanged for British businessman Grenville Wynne, held in Moscow for passing on military secrets. These incidents bear relevance in the current standoff between India and Pakistan over Kulbhushan Jadav. There exists no protocols between the two countries over exchange of spies. There's also no proof that Jadav was even engaged in spying, yet he was tried and convicted in secret by a military court. The Geneva Convention, to which Pakistan is a signatory, has specific rules relating to spies. It defines a spy as a person acting clandestinely, as a person seeking to communicate information to a hostile party. It lays down that spies caught in the act are entitled to a fair trial. He or she can be temporarily deprived of certain rights, but he or she cannot be executed unless ordered by a regulatory constituted court. It's not clear what leverage India could bring to bear on Islamabad. There's no clarity on whether India is actually holding a retired Pakistani ISI officer. What's clear is that the Indian government will do everything in its power to save an Indian life.
The Pakistan government to consider the consequences for our bilateral relationship.
Bureau report, WION.
On this matter.
Joining us for more on this, of course, Sushant Sareen continues to be with us. J.K. Verma, former intelligence officer, Mayad Ali, senior journalist with us from Pakistan, and Glenn Carl, former CIA agent, joining us this evening from Boston. Good evening to all of you. Mr. Verma, to you first. Spies are a reality of life. There have been spy swaps in the past at the height of the Cold War, as we just showed in that report. Why is such a mechanism not possible when it comes to India and Pakistan?
Yeah, in fact, the relations between India and Pakistan, they are a special relationship. And here, in fact, I will like to say stringently that Kulbhushan Jadav was not an spy. He was an Indian national and he was abducted from Iran by the military controlled ISI and unnecessarily put a false charges against him. So the question that he is a spy, he is not an spy. But I feel that Pakistan has done it with the ulterior motive to pressurize India, because they want to get a bargaining chip from India. They want that that negotiation should start, and Pakistan wants that the pressure which India built in the international arena against Pakistan and isolating Pakistan, India should stop it. That's why they have done it. And Kulbhushan Jadhav is an innocent Indian national who was doing his business and was taken by Pakistan just to malign India. However, I strongly feel that this is the responsibility of Government of India to take stringent action against Pakistan.
What action can India take?
India should immediately lower down. Yeah, India should immediately lower down the diplomatic status of India and Pakistan. This is the first thing. Second, the MFN status given to Pakistan must be withdrawn. Indus Water Treaty, we are giving Pakistan much more water. We should stop it immediately. Besides that, India should also specifically, India should also in the world arena, that what Pakistan is doing, repression on their own nationality, particularly in Baluchistan, in Sindh, in Pakhtunkhwa, and to the Muhajirs. Here, I would like to add one point very early.
I want to bring in a guest from Pakistan. Mayad Ali is with us, joining us this evening. Mayad Ali, this has been called a sham trial, sir. Within 3 months, the Pakistani military court has decided that he was guilty of espionage. India says that he's a civilian who was abducted from Iran. There is no proof. Sartaj Aziz was on record saying that there isn't enough proof against him. How do you expect the world to believe that Pakistan is doing the right thing?
Well, as far as the trial is concerned, I don't have a different opinion on that because I don't know what happened there. You see, it was a court-martial and we didn't have any access to the proceedings and to the accounts, any account that was taken there in the court. So I agree to an extent. Yes, I won't call it a sham, but I don't know what happened there, you see. On that count, yeah, I think India should have been given an access under the Geneva Accord, under other laws that a civilized world follows. I think on that count, yeah, you are right.
Glenn Carl, have you followed this case? Do you believe too that the Geneva Convention was violated and the world should step up pressure on Pakistan to follow at least some very basic norms?
Well, it does seem that a trial that's held in camera so that no one can see what the evidence is and the proceedings are and the defense is not an acceptable practice, but it's not a surprising one either, when this clearly is a larger diplomatic pawn piece for ends that are not clear to me, or I think to anyone really. So at least from that perspective, which is a significant one, Pakistan has acted irregularly anyway, it would appear, but the facts we don't know, do we?
You've been with the CIA. Tell us, help us understand, how are spies treated? Is a basic protocol followed? Is an SOP followed when you have an espionage arrest? And do countries, by and large, stick to that?
Yeah, yes. It's actually the Geneva Convention, until the rise of Islamic terrorism, on the whole, has successfully regulated, and actually long before the Geneva Conventions even, international agreements going back centuries, have regulated how diplomats, citizens of foreign countries, and spies all will be treated. And most of the time, that has been respected, certainly in the form anyway. If someone has diplomatic immunity, then that person cannot be tried. They may only be expelled from the country. If someone does not, even if the person is an official, if I had been working in a country without having been formally accredited to that country, then the standard laws apply to me as they would to a non-official, which means that espionage in many countries is a capital crime. If you're convicted of it, you can be executed, or many states no longer have the death penalty, certainly punished to the extent of the law. It's only those who have diplomatic immunity who are insulated from that. Now, the reason for that is a sound one, which is that diplomats should be able, all countries recognize, foreign diplomats should be able to represent the interests of their country without being unfairly pressured or coerced. That is in the interest of the host country for a foreign diplomat. That's why you have diplomatic immunity. But if this gentleman did not have diplomatic immunity, then he could be subject to conviction as a spy and in Pakistan hanged. Now, if he were abducted from a foreign country, then that becomes far more complicated. But those are the procedures, and there really is honor among thieves, not that spies are thieves all the time. Intelligence officers are not thieves, spies sometimes are. Then one is protected or not.
Well, some don't follow the honor among thieves. Sushant Sareen, let me ask you this. Is a mechanism to deal with spies, and if we concede, even if we were to suppose for a moment that Kulbhushan Jadhav is a spy and not a civilian, as the government of India is saying, is a mechanism conceivable in this context?
So I don't think there can be a formal mechanism for this kind of a case. But what you could have is, and which is what I don't think there was a formal mechanism even between the US and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But what you had was that, you figured out a way that, occasionally you would indulge in swaps of people who had been arrested on either side. So that, something like that could, of course, be worked out with the Pakistani side. But then I think that will depend to some extent on whether you do have some quid pro quo to offer, or it could also depend upon whether from the Pakistani side they say that no, because we have caught this guy and because we have climbed something of a gum tree by hyping up this matter to a point where, our entire story on Balochistan and everything else is based on this one person who has given a forced confession. And so, we can trot it all over the world. So, on that basis, they could easily decide that there will be no swap and they will go ahead and carry out the sentence. Of course, then that would have repercussions on the relationship between the two countries. But perhaps the Pakistanis also feel that they don't really need to have any kind of a relationship with India, just as many people in India would feel the same way. So obviously, it will depend upon what the calculations of the establishments on either side are before you can figure out some kind of a deal or some kind of a protocol or mechanism in this particular case. If there is another case a couple of months or a couple of years down the line, perhaps a new set of protocols and a new mechanism will have to be worked out. So it's all going to be pretty sui generis, if I might use that term, in these kind of cases.
Mayad Ali, is there a realization, at least in Pakistan, that this is a brazen violation of the Geneva Convention, that the world is watching and that India is exploring all options?
Well, for one, I think this is not such a huge issue in Pakistan. People are not pushed. They are used to such things. Whenever it comes to India, that hatred is there, that animosity is there. So people don't have, you see, this issue hasn't been sort of, I would say, brought forward by or print, I would say. So it's not a concern in Pakistan. It's not much of a concern in Pakistan, and I think there won't be any voice in this regard. I don't look forward to any sort of voice over this case, because it's a sensitive matter and the army is dealing with the whole issue. The guy has been court-martialed and they say that they have enough evidence against him. They have or they haven't followed the protocol. We don't have any information on that. We know, as you say, that Kulbhushan was not given it is. We don't much know about the whole process being carried out behind the scenes.
Sure, and that's the very least that Kulbhushan Jadhav and his family and his country, if I may add, can demand that a full disclosure be made. What is the proof against him to start with? What can India do is also something that we're looking at. It can use trusted third parties to talk to Pakistan. It can step up diplomatic pressure on Pakistan. It can also build pressure on Pakistan in Balochistan, Northwest Frontier Province, and convey the threat of retaliation. And as we understand, the government of India is looking at all the options. Glenn, before I wrap up this discussion, you know, the media in India has exhausted this debate by talking to hawks versus the peaceniks. As someone watching the situation from outside and as someone who understands how agencies operate, how governments deal in situations like this, what are India's realistic options according to you?
Well, I think you summarized the dividing point between what is supposed to happen and what actually happens in the world. The Geneva Conventions are an effort which have had notable successes to codify and establish obligations for nations in the world. The problem in the international system is that absent a police authority that exists in India for India or in the United States for India, absent that internationally, then the system breaks down if someone doesn't follow it, as it appears here Pakistan has not. So then you get into just what you were talking about, which is that one always must have some leverage and some means of engaging. It's true, the points made, or I agree with the points made earlier in the discussion, that even with your most violent enemies, one should always have some sort of dialogue going on because it is in your interest to do so, even as you try to kill them, possibly. So India is doing the right things, which may or may not work, which is seeking other means of leverage to, which clearly is what Pakistan is doing too. I mean, a spy is a spy, but he's always a pawn in the larger game. And here, since there's no authority to adjudicate really between India and Pakistan, it comes down to how can India bring pressure to bear on Pakistan, and whether that's in Kashmir, in negotiations, the lack of negotiations, and in diplomatic moves with neighbors in Afghanistan. There's an infinite number of steps that one can consider, and then you go from there. It's a ruthless game.
Yes, it is. And there's a big if here when we discuss all of this. If he is indeed a spy, because the government of India still maintains that he's a civilian who was abducted from Iran. But I'll leave it at that. I want to thank Mr. Verma, Mayad Ali and Sushant Sareen. Glenn Carl, I'm going to request you to stay. As you said, even if there is hostility, talks must continue. And that's what we'll focus on the other side of this break, the talks between US and Russia in Moscow.